I wasn't supposed to be there. That night was supposed to be simple. Laura had her gym class, I had leftovers and the couch. We'd exchange texts, maybe a funny meme, and she'd be home by 9, flushed from a workout and smelling like eucalyptus and shampoo. That was the rhythm we'd fallen into lately. Predictable. Comfortable. Or at least, that's what I thought. I had just gotten back from picking up groceries when I noticed her headphones in the passenger seat of my car. The expensive ones, the ones she wouldn't go 10 minutes on a treadmill without. I figured she must have forgotten them when she swapped cars with me earlier that afternoon. It wasn't a big deal, just one of those small husband things, you know? I thought maybe I'd surprise her, stop by wherever she was eating and drop them off. No big gesture, just a thoughtful little errand. She told me she was meeting someone from the gym for a quick dinner. I asked who, and she just said a friend, and I didn't push. Why would I? So I drove out toward the west side of Austin where she said they'd be meeting. I remembered she mentioned Crescent Pine in passing, a quiet spot, kind of tucked away behind some trees and boutique shops. It wasn't a chain, and it wasn't the type of place you'd pick unless you really wanted good ambience. It had mood lighting, a long wine list, and candles on every table. A date place. That should have been the first red flag. I pulled into the parking lot without a second thought. The evening was just starting to cool down, the kind of spring night you almost forget how much you missed. I remember thinking I'd just drop the headphones off, kiss her on the cheek, maybe say hi to whoever she was with, and leave. That was the plan. But when I walked up to the front entrance, that plan fell apart. Through the tall windows, I saw her. And I saw him. She was facing the window. I don't think she saw me right away. I stopped just short of the door, instinctively pulling back into the shadows of the entryway. She wasn't wearing her usual gym gear. No leggings, no sports hoodie. Instead, she had on a deep green blouse that hugged her frame in a way I hadn't seen in months, paired with black heels and the gold hoops she usually only wore on our anniversaries. Her makeup was flawless, smoky eyes, dark red lips, her hair curled in those waves that take time. And she looked alive. Not like someone who had just finished a workout, but like someone trying to impress. The guy sitting across from her was maybe early 40s, neatly dressed. He wore a crisp button-down and an expensive-looking watch. Not a gym rat. Not a casual friend. He leaned forward just slightly, elbows on the table, his posture relaxed in a way that only comes with familiarity. Between them sat 2 wine glasses, nearly empty, and a half-finished creme brulee with 2 spoons. Laura laughed at something he said, and her hand grazed the table dangerously close to his. That kind of proximity wasn't accidental. It was practiced. My stomach twisted. I started convincing myself it wasn't what it looked like. Maybe this was just a weird coincidence. Maybe she dressed up for herself. Maybe she wanted to look good, feel confident, maybe that was it. And then I saw it. The man reached for his napkin, and when he shifted, the collar of his shirt moved just enough for me to see a silver chain around his neck. Not just any chain. My chain. I'd given it to Laura 5 years ago. It had a small, flat pendant, barely noticeable unless you knew what you were looking at. She said she loved it. Said it made her feel safe, like a piece of me was always with her. She wore it for years. But about 6 months ago, it disappeared. I asked about it once, and she shrugged it off. Said she lost it during a trip. I believed her. Until now. Now it was hanging off another man's neck, resting right where mine used to when she'd kiss me goodnight. The weight in my chest was immediate and suffocating. My first instinct was to burst through the doors, call her name, demand an explanation, make a scene. But I didn't. Something told me to pause. To absorb. To watch. A few moments later, she looked up and saw me. Her expression froze. It lasted only a second, but it was there. Panic. Guilt. A flicker of something sharp and real before she composed herself. Her back straightened. She tilted her head like she was surprised, then smiled, small and practiced. She waved. I stepped inside, trying to keep my face blank. I walked toward the table, headphones in hand, heart thudding like a drum. Hey, she said, her voice light but slightly strained. What are you doing here? I held up the headphones. You left these in my car. Thought you might need them. Oh, she said, taking them. Thanks. That's sweet. There was a pause, thick and awkward. She turned to the man beside her. Zach, this is Connor, she said quickly. From the gym. He's helping me with that fitness mentorship program I told you about. Connor stood and extended his hand. He looked calm. Too calm. I shook it briefly. Felt cold, detached. We were just talking about the summer program, Laura continued. The gym's trying to branch into youth athletics and, well, there's a lot going on. I nodded slowly. Didn't realize business dinners came with creme brulee. Her smile faltered. "We just ordered something sweet. Been a long day," she said. I looked at her then. Really looked. She was trying so hard to stay composed, but her eyes were tight at the corners, and her fingers were clenched around her wine glass like a lifeline. Her nails tapped the stem, a soft, frantic rhythm. "You look nice," I said. Came out flat. Too flat. She blinked. "Thanks. I just threw something on." That was a lie, and we both knew it. I looked at Connor again. He was quiet now, eyes shifting between us, calculating. He didn't look nervous. He looked like a man who'd been here before, who'd already decided his role and was waiting to see how it would play out. I didn't stay long. Just said I had to get going. Told her to call me later. She nodded, but her mouth stayed shut. And then I walked out, the cool night air biting harder than before. Back in the car, I sat with my hands on the wheel, engine off, headlights dim. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, staring through the windshield at nothing, letting the truth settle around me like ash. It wasn't just what I saw. It was what I felt. That quiet, mate energy between them. The way she tried to control the narrative. The chain. God, the chain. And suddenly, everything started to click. The new perfume I didn't recognize. The nights she came home late, flushed and saying she lost track of time. The sudden interest in spin classes with friends I never met. The way she'd started locking her phone. The missed calls from names I didn't recognize. All of it. I hadn't imagined the distance between us. I just didn't want to see it for what it was. Now I had no choice. As I drove away from the restaurant, one sentence kept looping in my mind. This wasn't the beginning. It was the reveal. That night I didn't sleep. Not even a little. I laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft hum of the fan and the occasional creak of the house, like it was holding its breath with me. Laura got home sometime after midnight. I didn't hear her walk in, but I felt the shift, the weight of her presence returning. She didn't come into the bedroom right away. I heard the fridge open, the clink of a glass, then soft footsteps retreating down the hall. When I finally drifted into a shallow sleep around 4 a.m., she still hadn't come to bed. The next morning was a performance. She acted like nothing had happened. She smiled, made coffee, asked me if I needed anything from the store. I played along, nodded, kept my answers short. My mind wasn't interested in small talk. It was busy sorting through pieces I had ignored for too long. And suddenly, the pieces were everywhere. The week before, she changed gyms. Claimed the old one was too crowded, too far. I didn't ask for specifics. I figured she just needed a change. But now I realized I never saw the name of the new place. Never heard her mention new friends or instructors. She'd say, "the girls from class," like I was supposed to know who that was. She started showering at the gym more. Said it was easier, more efficient. That was her word, efficient. But some nights she came home with perfect hair. Not sweaty, not flushed. Just polished. Like she was arriving from something else entirely. And her phone. God, her phone. She used to leave it lying around. Face up on the counter, pinging every few minutes with group chats and Pinterest notifications. Now it was always face down. Always on silent. She'd take it into the bathroom, even into the closet. One night, I saw a call flash across the screen. Vera, a generic name, could have meant anything. But when she answered, I caught the voice. It was a man, deep, confident. She laughed and said something about meeting up later. Then she turned her back and walked into another room. When I asked about it, she shrugged. Said Vera was short for Veritas, a yoga friend with a masculine voice. It was such an absurd explanation that I almost laughed. But I didn't. I just nodded like I believed her. It wasn't just the phone. One night, about a month ago, she got home at 3 in the morning. I was half asleep, groggy, disoriented. She stumbled through the door with her keys in one hand and her heels in the other. Said there was an accident on the highway. A semi flipped. Traffic backed up for hours. She was too tired to elaborate. Just kissed my forehead and went straight to the shower. I remember thinking it was weird that she smelled like wine but not like smoke or the road. Now I wondered if there had ever been an accident at all. I started noticing the house felt different too. Off. Like a hotel room that's been cleaned but still carries the trace of a stranger's presence. The bed looked too neat some mornings, like it had been remade. But not by me. The sheets were tucked in just a little too carefully. The pillows fluffed with intention. One morning I opened the dishwasher and saw a single wine glass I didn't recognize. It was clean, already washed and drying on the rack. Slightly taller than our usual set with a thinner stem. Laura never mentioned having anyone over. There were no dinner remnants, no new bottles of wine, no second plate. Just that glass. Alone. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to sound paranoid. But inside, the alarms were going off nonstop. Sometimes I'd come home from work and get this weird feeling. Like I had just missed something. A faint trace of cologne in the air, not mine. Or the slight shift in the living room throw pillows arranged the way I never arranged them. Once, I found her robe, my favorite one on her, tucked into the back of the laundry basket, still faintly damp, with perfume I didn't recognize. She said it was new. Something she picked up from a boutique. I couldn't even argue. All I had was a hunch. A growing, gnawing certainty that something was wrong. I tried to convince myself I was overthinking it. We'd hit a rough patch, sure. Work was stressful. She was trying new things. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe I was making stories out of shadows. But then one night, something happened that shook me. We were in bed, backs to each other. Her breathing had slowed, soft, steady, like she was asleep. I lay there, staring at the wall, listening to the sound of the city drifting in through the window. Then her phone buzzed. Not a loud buzz. Just one of those short, pulsing ones. She didn't move. Didn't even flinch. I reached for it. I don't know why. I didn't plan to. But my hand moved before I could think. I didn't unlock it. Just glanced at the notification on the lock screen. Miss you already. No name. No context. Just that. Simple. Direct. In asterisk mate. I placed the phone back quietly. My heart was racing. I felt like a thief in my own bed. The next morning she was cheerful. Talkative. She offered to make pancakes, asked if I wanted to go hiking that weekend. I nodded again, smiling like I hadn't seen the message. Like I hadn't felt the ground shift beneath my feet. That was her specialty, keeping the surface calm. She knew how to say the right things, wear the right expressions, laugh at the right times. But I'd started watching closer. The laughs didn't always reach her eyes. The smiles were just a beat too late. Like a bad actor missing her cue. I started paying attention in a way I hadn't before. Every word she said was filed away. Every moment tracked. I wasn't looking for proof anymore. I was collecting context. And in that context, even the ordinary began to feel loaded. She bought new lingerie one week. I found the receipt before I saw the actual piece. It wasn't the kind of thing she'd ever worn for me. When I asked, she said it was just something fun she'd seen on sale. But it was still in its bag, tags attached, shoved into the back of the drawer like a secret. The more I watched, the more the distance grew. I started wondering if this was how people fell apart, not in explosions, but in small shifts. Missed glances. Half-truths. A wine glass that didn't belong. A stranger's chain. A phantom perfume that never lingered long enough to name. It all pointed to something else. Something unspoken. And the worst part? I didn't know who to be. The husband who asked questions and demanded answers? Or the man who stayed silent and waited for it all to reveal itself? Some days I told myself I could fix it. That I just had to be better. More attentive. Stronger. That maybe, just maybe, I'd let things slide for too long. Maybe she felt neglected. Maybe this was salvageable. But other days I felt like a ghost in my own life. Watching it unfold from the sidelines, powerless to stop it. She was slipping away one work dinner at a time. And I was starting to realize whatever this was, whatever truth was sitting under the surface, it wasn't going to stay hidden much longer. The lie had cracks. And sooner or later, something was going to fall through. It happened on a Sunday. The kind of day where nothing is supposed to go wrong. Warm light bleeding through the windows. Birds outside making their usual racket. Laura had left early that morning, claiming she had a brunch meeting with the team from the gym. She kissed my cheek, said, "Don't wait up," and walked out wearing that casual yet flawless look that didn't match the story she was telling. I didn't follow her. I didn't ask questions. I'd stopped asking questions. Instead, I wandered into the garage, needing to get my mind off everything. The chaos in my head was like static, loud, endless, unresolved. I figured I'd dig through some of the old storage shelves, maybe finally tackle the boxes we never unpacked after the last move. Distraction, I thought. That's all I needed. That's when I found it. An old, beat-up tablet, hers, not mine. White, a cracked corner, a fading sticker on the back from some yoga retreat in Sedona. I almost didn't notice it buried beneath a pile of seasonal decorations and half-dangled cords. It was coated in dust like it hadn't been touched in years. I pressed the power button out of habit, expecting it to be dead. But to my surprise, it lit up. Slowly. Struggling. But it worked. No password. She must have removed the lock screen when she stopped using it. I thought maybe I could factory reset it, donate it somewhere. Then it buzzed. Just once. A notification that caught my eye. Cloud sync error. I clicked. One swipe led to another. And then there it was. Her cloud account. Photos. Messages. Files. Synced automatically. Forgotten. Untouched. And wide open. My heart started pounding. A familiar voice in the back of my mind whispered, "Don't. Just turn it off, put it away. You don't want to know." Not really. But I did. God help me, I did. I opened the photo gallery first. Years of images. Vacations. Holidays. Random selfies. But then something different. A folder I'd never seen before buried under events. I tapped it. The first photo was of her, wrapped in a white hotel robe, standing near a floor-to-ceiling window. Her hair was still damp and she was holding a champagne glass in one hand. She looked content. Radiant even. But it wasn't the robe or the glass that hit me. It was the reflection. In the mirror behind her, I saw him. Connor. Shirtless, casually walking across the hotel suite with a bottle in his hand. Blurred, but unmistakable. The timestamp? 2 months ago. The exact weekend she told me she was in Dallas for a friend's bachelorette party. She'd even brought home a little gift bag, a pink sash, and a string of plastic pearls to sell the story. I stared at the photo for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just felt hollow, like someone had scooped everything out of me and left nothing behind but skin and bone. But that wasn't the worst of it. I kept digging. Messages. Hundreds of them. *TS saved from her phone. Conversations between her and Connor stretching back months. They weren't just flirtatious. They weren't just inappropriate. They were an asterisk mate. They talked about work, yes, but only briefly. Most of it was emotional. Raw. Him telling her how he hadn't connected with anyone like this in years. Her saying she felt alive again, like she'd been asleep for too long. They shared playlists. Photos. Inside jokes. There were confessions of missed touches, hotel meetups, secret vacations masked as business trips. And then I found the one that crushed me. Zach's sweet, but he's background noise. He's too tired to notice anything. I don't even think he sees me anymore. I feel invisible. Background noise. That was me. Not her partner. Not her husband. Just some ambient sound she tuned out when life got interesting. I felt like I was watching a movie I didn't audition for. Reading lines from a script someone else had written about me without asking for my input. She had built an entire emotional world with another man while I stood in our kitchen every morning, making her coffee, folding her laundry, asking about her day. I thought I was part of her life. Turns out I was just set dressing. And then there were the logistics. Hotel itineraries saved in PDFs, calendar entries labeled with vague names like retreat or team sync. Receipts from restaurants in cities I didn't even know she'd been to. Every lie she told had a digital footprint. I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't overthinking. I was just late to the truth. At some point, I found myself sitting on the garage floor, the tablet dimming in my lap. My arms felt heavy. My eyes were dry but burning. There was no dramatic moment, no screaming into the sky. Just stillness. A silence that felt deeper than anything I'd ever known. And underneath it all, something I hadn't felt in weeks. Clarity. This wasn't a rough patch. This wasn't miscommunication or stress or drifting apart. This was a choice. She had made it. Repeatedly. Intentionally. With planning and purpose and zero hesitation. She'd said she needed space. That she was trying to find herself. What she really meant was I found someone else. And she did it while holding my hand, sleeping in our bed, smiling at me over dinner. I stood up eventually. Closed the tablet. Wiped the dust from my jeans. The garage light flickered overhead and I watched the dust motes swirl like tiny, weightless lies suspended in the air. I didn't go inside. Instead, I walked to the backyard, sat down on the old wooden bench we barely used anymore, and stared at nothing. For the first time in our entire relationship, I wasn't wondering what Laura was thinking. I already knew that I didn't sleep that night either. I didn't even go to bed. I stayed on the living room couch, fully dressed, staring at the tablet I'd placed on the coffee table. I didn't open it again. I didn't need to. Everything I needed to know had already landed like a brick to the chest. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet where even the refrigerator hum sounds judgmental. I could hear my own thoughts looping on repeat. Her voice in those messages. That picture. The chain. I sat there until morning light started bleeding through the blinds. Around 6 a.m., I stood up and began packing. I wasn't angry. Not in the loud, volatile way you might expect. What I felt was colder, quieter, like something inside me had turned off for good. There was no yelling, no door slamming, just silence. Calculated, practiced silence. I went to the closet, grabbed my duffel bag, and started with the essentials. A few changes of clothes, my work laptop, a pair of boots I'd had since college, my toothbrush, deodorant, cologne, things I could control. As I packed, I moved slowly, methodically. There was something sobering about it. Like I was collecting evidence from a crime scene where I had been both the victim and the one left behind. In the hallway, I passed a framed photo of the two of us at her sister's wedding. She was laughing, hand in mine, my tie crooked. I looked at it for a long time before pulling it off the wall. I didn't smash it. I didn't even drop it. I just turned it around and leaned it face down on the entry table. That photo didn't mean what it used to. None of them did. I walked to the kitchen next, took out a pen and paper from the drawer by the sink, and wrote exactly one sentence. I saw everything. You don't need to explain. I placed the note on the counter next to her favorite mug, the one that said world's okayest morning person. Then I reached into my pocket, pulled out the silver chain I had found around Connor's neck, and set it beside the note. I didn't even remember picking it up, but somehow it ended up in my jacket pocket like it knew it didn't belong to either of them anymore. There was nothing else to say. Before leaving, I walked through the house once more, room by room. The bedroom, the hallway, the little sunroom she used for reading. It was like walking through a museum of a life I didn't recognize anymore. I passed her perfume bottle on the dresser, half empty, unfamiliar scent. The throw blanket she always left bunched up on the couch. Her planner still open on the dining table, with neat cursive entries like, Connor meeting, Wednesday 6 p.m., like it was normal, like it was part of a schedule. I changed the security code on the front door keypad. Then I grabbed my car keys, locked the door behind me, and drove away without looking back. I didn't leave a trace, didn't text her, didn't call, didn't post some cryptic social media message or tell mutual friends. I just disappeared from that version of life. Because here's the truth. When someone shows you who they are behind your back, you don't need to confront them to understand it. You don't need to force clarity out of chaos. You just need to leave. I drove aimlessly at first. No destination. No playlist. Just the road and me, trying to outrun the image of her laughing in that hotel photo like I never existed. Eventually, I pulled into a gas station on the edge of town, sat there for a while, and started calling hotels. I found one about an hour north, quiet, cheap, clean enough. I checked in under my middle name. Even the front desk clerk seemed to pick up on something and didn't ask questions. That first night in the hotel, I slept on top of the covers, lights on, shoes still on my feet. I kept waking up in the dark, disoriented, reaching for a body that wasn't there. Each time I reminded myself, she's not supposed to be. By the third morning, I turned off my phone. Not airplane mode. A full shutdown. I knew she'd see the note. She'd read it. Maybe she'd cry or panic or get defensive. Maybe she'd call a dozen times, beg me to come back, offer 1,000 apologies she didn't mean. Or maybe she wouldn't call at all. Maybe she'd just turn to Connor for comfort and keep the story going like I was never part of it. I didn't care anymore. There was a strange freedom in that. In walking away without giving her a script to follow. In not giving her the satisfaction of a fight or a chance to frame herself as the victim. Let her deal with the silence. Let her sit with it. Let her wonder how I knew. When I knew. If it was the chain or the messages or the photo. Let her tear through her mind trying to find the exact moment it all came undone. I already had. And I wasn't going to let her explain it away with phrases like I felt lost or it just happened or you weren't there for me. Because I was there. Every day. Every night. I was there when she needed someone to K*LL spiders, fix the sink, hold her after her mom's diagnosis. I was there when she didn't even notice me anymore. And she was somewhere else flirting with a man who wore my chain and laughed at jokes I was never told. I spent the next few days in that small hotel room rotating between numbness and exhaustion. I wrote in a notebook, not for therapy but because my thoughts wouldn't stay quiet otherwise. I ate gas station food and drank too much coffee and stared at the ceiling like it had answers. It didn't. But slowly something shifted. I stopped thinking about her first thing in the morning. I stopped checking the parking lot every time a car pulled in. I started breathing without feeling like my ribs were wrapped in barbed wire. That's when I knew I was going to be okay. Not immediately. Not all at once. But eventually. The truth is, betrayal doesn't scream. It doesn't always come with slammed doors or tearful admissions. Sometimes it just looks like a half-washed wine glass in the sink. A phone that's always turned face down. A perfectly made bed that doesn't match the chaos you feel inside. And when it all becomes too loud to ignore, you have two choices: confront the lie and let it devour you, or walk away without feeding it a single word. I chose the second. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel powerless. I felt free. The first few days away were quiet in the way that unnerved me. I expected the weight of it all to slam into me, the grief, the loss, the what now. But the silence felt clean. Heavy, yes, but free of static. No more guessing. No more second-guessing myself. No more pretending I was crazy for sensing something was off when it was written in the way she no longer looked me in the eye. I stayed off-grid for about a week. A no-name motel near a cluster of pines off I-84, just a couple hours shy of the Idaho border. It wasn't much, low water pressure, a window that wouldn't quite lock, but it was mine and no one else's. I could sit there in the stale morning air, sip burnt coffee, and not worry about being someone's husband or background noise. After a while, I called Randy. Randy's one of those friends who doesn't talk unless it matters. We'd known each other since middle school, bonded over flat tires, bad beards, and worse breakups. He ran a mechanic shop in Boise, lived alone since his divorce, and had the kind of couch that molded to your shape like it was listening. When I told him I was in town, he didn't ask questions. He just said, "You hungry?" and that was that. The first night I crashed at his place, I didn't tell him anything. We drank 2 beers, watched a rerun of a game we didn't care about, and fell asleep to the sound of rain on the metal roof. The next morning, he slid a manila folder across the kitchen table without a word. I stared at it. "What's this?" "Things I didn't know how to give you before," he said, chewing toast. "Didn't want to start a war unless you were ready for one?" I opened the folder. Inside were weeks, maybe months of evidence. Hotel bookings. Names I recognized from Laura's excuses. Gas station receipts timestamped between 2 and 4 a.m., nowhere near her usual commute. Screen captures from shared financial statements, small, precise withdrawals from our joint account marked personal or miscellaneous. And then, near the bottom, a printed email. A draft. One she never sent. It started simply. "Zach doesn't know. At least, I don't think he does." The paragraph that followed was one long unraveling of guilt and justification. She admitted to everything, meeting Connor during a collaborative gym event, which was apparently code for flirtation with reps from corporate. She confessed to the lies, the late-night meetups, the way she told herself that because it wasn't constant, it wasn't betrayal. But it was. She knew it. There's a part of me that misses the life I had with him. But it felt like I was holding on to something that already let go of me. That line stuck with me. Because for a while, I thought the same thing. That maybe I'd let her drift. That maybe I didn't notice soon enough. But reading her words, hearing her own admission, I realized something I hadn't let myself say until that moment. I was there. I showed up. I didn't pull away. I didn't stop trying. She just stopped seeing me. And that wasn't my fault. The rest of the letter was less coherent, half apologies, half confessionals. She said she wasn't in love with Connor, but he made her feel present. Whatever that meant. She said she didn't want to hurt me, but knew she already had. She said she didn't know what she wanted anymore except to feel something again. That last part? I believed it. And that's what made everything click. She wasn't looking for a better man. She was looking for a new mirror. One that reflected someone interesting, desirable, alive. And when that mirror dulled, when the shine wore off, she would have done the same thing all over again with someone else. Not because of me. Not even because of Connor. But because she couldn't sit still in her own silence. Randy didn't say much while I read. Just sat across from me, sipping black coffee from a chipped mug that said "Keep it real." He waited until I was done. then finally asked, "So, what now?" I thought about it. "I don't know," I admitted. "But I think I'm done waiting for her to tell me." He nodded. "Good. She already did. Just didn't use words." We spent that day driving. I needed to move, needed my mind to stretch its legs. We ended up at this junkyard he liked outside of Nampa, where he picked through rusted fenders like a chef at a farmer's market. I just wandered, somewhere between a busted tailgate and an old grill with weeds growing through it. I realized I wasn't angry anymore. Sad, sure. Tired, definitely. But the fire that had been burning in my chest for weeks, it was out. Or maybe it had just burned itself clean. By the time we got back to his place, I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to fight her. Not in court, not through emails, not through text threads that looped in guilt and half-hearted apologies. I wasn't going to demand closure from someone who couldn't even give honesty. I just wanted peace. That night, I started sketching out my next steps. I'd take the car. Let her keep the house. I didn't want it anymore. I'd contact a lawyer in the morning, draft the paperwork, and end it with the same silence I left the chain beside. And this time, it would be me choosing the ending. No more waiting to be seen. No more hoping for clarity from someone who blurred every line she crossed. The next day, I logged into our shared bank account, withdrew my half, and opened a new one under my name only. I canceled joint bills, transferred titles. It was mechanical but cathartic, like washing a house clean after a storm. I wrote one final message, not to her but to myself. You weren't blind. You just believed her too much. There's a strange kind of grace in reaching the end of something and realizing you survived it. That no matter how messy the middle was, you made it through without having to scream to be heard. Because sometimes, the loudest truth is the one you whisper to yourself. You deserved better. And now you're going to live like it. Laura sat across the table, eyes hollow, voice soft. She didn't fight, didn't cry. She just said she never meant for it to go that far. And I didn't respond. Her lawyer offered compromises, splits, apologies, even offers of reconciliation. I shook my head. I didn't want the house, the car, or compensation. I only wanted closure. She signed the papers with a trembling hand. I didn't reach for it. When it was done, I stood up, thanked the attorneys, and walked out. Not once did I look back. She had chosen a different life. I was simply honoring it. Months later, I rented a cabin in Umatilla County, Oregon, trees, water, no reception. I hiked, baked bread, learned to sit with silence. One afternoon, I passed a gym downtown. Through the window, I saw him, Connor, laughing. Until he saw me, his face froze. I said nothing, just kept walking. I didn't need revenge. I had my dignity, my peace, and a new beginning. Sometimes, starting over means ending quietly. And that silence finally felt like mine.